All right, what's up, everyone? This is Mike Deary. Welcome to another fun YouTube live session brought to you by Rock Guitar Power and Super Guitar Licks, a couple websites that I teach guitar online with. A lot of my lessons and other people that submit lessons too are on there. And I'm starting to do a lot more of these live sessions, which are just super fun for me to hang out, answer questions, cover some topics, and just hang out and play some cool guitar stuff. So welcome, everyone. As you're kind of piling in, let me know if everything looks good and sounds good. I think we're getting this this whole live thing dialed in pretty well with the audio and lights, but I want to make sure it's good on your end. So feel free to chime in on the chat there. And I have a couple topics we're going to cover today. The main one we're going to talk about is controlling your guitar strings to get tighter and cleaner sound with your playing. So that's going to be one of the main topics we're going to talk about. But I am here. Hey, Larry. Thanks, man. I'm here to answer questions too, though. So if you guys have questions, start asking them in the chat. I can see everything that's going on, and I'm here to answer and help you guys out. So if you have questions, feel free to type them in, and we'll cover them. But we're going to dive in a sec, and I'm going to talk about. Awesome. Hey, Jay, how you doing? We're going to talk about, like I said, how to play cleaner and how to control your guitar strings. And this is a topic that I've done a bunch. There's a couple lessons on it on my sites. There's one on Rock Guitar Power and there's one on Super Guitar Licks. And I will link to everything, below the video on the replay and so forth. And by the way, I'm also trying a new thing where I'm streaming this live on Rock Guitar Power. So if you go to Rock Guitar Power /live-stream, you should be able to see this video there where you could actually ask questions there and so forth. But anyways, I'll link to the resources I have on this. But one of the the reasons why I'm doing this lesson today is one of my online students, Blake, asked about Stevie Ray Vaughan and how he's always able to kind of, have this technique where he would just plow into the strings, and it would be, he would just sound like the one note would come out. And it's a great point. He was like, how do you do that? Because I know it's not rake picking, but how does he get just that one note to come out? And that was, a topic and an idea that I'm like, yeah, that's a good one for a full lesson, because there's so many tricks that we do as guitar players that help make our sound. A lot of times you'll hear, people say, oh, if you give Eddie Van Halen any guitar or any amp, he'll still sound like Eddie Van Halen. And that's the same of all famous and established players. And it's because of the way they control their strings, they use their fingers, and so forth that really produce the tone. So let's jump into it. There's a bunch of techniques that we're going to talk about on why this is important and how to do it. And the biggest thing is that when you're using a lot of distortion, this is one of the places that this is going to matter the most. Because if I have a lot of distortion, distortion sounds cool. It provides sustain, it provides tone, but with it, comes a lot of extra noise. And controlling that noise is a really essential part of being a good guitar player. And we don't want to really rely on things like gates or, using, another thing that people sometimes do is tie or put like a hair braid or things like that on your strings. These are all little kind of hacks, if you will, but the real magic comes from your fingers, all right? And being able to control the tone is what's really important. And this wasn't something I figured out until, I taught it for years, and then I finally examined my playing, and I'm like, well, what am I doing that makes this sound so good? So if we take, we're going to take a backing track that's a 12-bar blues in E, which is on both guitar sites on the backing track section. But if we look at the E pentatonic scale, we'll be at the 12th fret. Okay. Now, the biggest tip, the first part about controlling your strings, is actually this part of your hand and your thumb, okay? What I'm going to do is, if I play this super slow, once I get past the first big string, what happens is both the side of my thumb and mostly this part of my palm is going to start resting on the strings, all right? And it's going to move down as my hand moves down. And that's one of the techniques that's helping to control the strings as I get lower, okay? If I take my hand off, now, of course, I would never play like this, but watch what happens if I play the same scale without muting any strings. Okay, you can hear all that extra noise right now, okay? Now watch. All right, all that goes away when my palm goes down, okay? So this is one of the things that happens that you want to get used to, and it's a part of practicing your scales and being conscious of this, that when I play my scale, my palm rests on the strings, and it moves down so that I could feel the strings, on my palm as I move down. And that's keeping everything nice and tight and quiet. Okay, you see how quiet and tight that is? Again, the opposite. There's all that extra noise again, okay? So that's one huge tip that happens. And again, it's really something that you hear a lot more when you have a lot of thick distortion, because that tends to make everything make more noise. But that is one of the techniques. And of course, as you develop speed, this is something that just kind of, is part of your playing. The other thing, too, is that there's a fine line between playing a palm muted note and playing a note that's just controlled and open. So in other words, if I put my palm down on the string I'm playing, you get a palm muted note. Okay, and I could actually feel the kind of, the tension in the note hitting my palm, if you will. But again, the opposite of that, okay, I'm not palm muting. My palm is just hitting the string right after it plays and moves down. So that is one of the big techniques that I use. Maybe I'll try it this way. I don't know if this helps, but check out this angle. Again, you'll see my palm move down. All right, and the same is true when I come backwards, okay? My palm down here is still on the strings, and it comes down on the strings and keeps them quiet, okay? So that's one big technique and trick to use. If you haven't thought about that already, try it out and go back and forth and hear the difference, okay? The other big thing is my left hand, okay? What is my left hand doing to help control the noise in the strings? So one of the things that you develop over time is that the first finger usually is kind of resting and touching a lot of the other strings that happen below the string I'm playing. So let's say I'm playing the note E, which is the 14th fret on the D string, right, with my ring finger. If you look at my first finger, it's laying down flat on all these other strings. And again, it's lightly touching those so that they don't ring out. And it keeps this note nice and tight. Now, if I don't have it down, you might say, oh, it's still sounding pretty tight. But what happens is as you play and as you really get into it, all the movements and things start rattling the guitar and making a lot of noise. And that noise builds up. So over time, those things add up. So by keeping this hand down, it helps keep all that stuff tight. Does all this making sense? Let me know if you guys have questions on any of this stuff. Okay, now the other thing, look what happened right now. Okay, I just stopped on a note, and I didn't even think about this, but look at the way my hand is right now. If you look at this finger, you'll see how it came over top of the note I'm playing. I'm still playing the 14th fret here on the D string, okay? But my finger comes up, and it's laying flat on the A and E strings. And again, it's muting those, so it keeps them quiet, okay? Because again, if I don't do that, all these little rattling things are going to make extra noise, all right? So you could see when I know I'm going to be on a note, let's say I'm going to do some crazy vibrato stuff. Okay, you can see how this finger kind of creeps up a little bit, and it's sitting there, touching it and just lightly touching the strings so they don't make noise, okay? So another tip there, and that's usually more for 1 or 2 strings above the note you're playing, okay? It's not something that you're going to do to kind of control everything for the most part. But again, every little bit helps, all right? Again, I know I'm coming on this note. I'm ending a phrase. Might as well bring these fingers up so that they touch. And the only note I'm focusing on is this one, pushing hard. And of course, the skin from the fingers here is touching the bottom strings. So again, keeping them quiet, okay? So now, one of the other things too, now if you've ever seen Stevie play or seen videos of Stevie play, Stevie Ray Vaughan that is, he does these big, like, just attacking into the... he really just looks like he's strumming into the note itself. But when he does that, all you're hearing is one note, okay? And again, what happens is all these techniques I'm talking about come together to keep the whole thing clean, all right? So when I do this... Now, believe me, there is an aspect of this that if you just practice a lot, you get to know where the note, the actual string you want to attack is. So when I'm coming in hard like this, okay, I'm pretty good at knowing where the G string is and then where the D string is and right where to attack, okay? That's just something that comes with time. But I know that even if I'm not 100% on that, what's happening is, number one, I know that the tip of my finger is really pushing down on that one note. So I know that if I hit a bunch of notes, I know that the main one that's going to ring out is that note I'm on, okay? Now, as I did that there, you'll notice that the A string was ringing out because I wasn't worried about the palm mute here. Now watch this. If you notice, it's a lot cleaner. It's still not perfect, but it's cleaner. And the reason why, it's because I'm coming down and really making sure that my palm hits those big strings before the note I want to play to keep them quiet, okay? So again, another reason why when I make these big strokes with my right hand that look like I'm strumming all the strings, it's really just coming in hard on that one note. And that's another crucial element of the tone that someone like Stevie Ray Vaughan had. You know, hard attack on the string makes a very big difference on the way the pickups perceive the note and, of course, deliver it through the whole signal chain. So when I hit a note nice and quiet like that, it's a lot different than... Okay, so you really push the pickups hard, and that's a big element of the tone that someone like Stevie gets or that you can get by making sure you could come in at a really aggressive attack, okay? But again, you got to make sure that you're controlling the strings when you do that, all right? Anybody got any questions on that or have any other topics around this that you want me to kind of fill in the blanks for? I'm going to do some more jamming in a sec here so you can kind of just see it all in place. So actually, why don't we do it right now? I'm going to just jam along to the backing track. So this is going to be a 12-bar blues in the key of E. And I'm just going to, you know, fool around with the scale and some licks. But again, think about the things I just talked about and watch how both my right hand palm is going to kind of keep things tight with the palm touching the strings I'm not playing. Watch my left hand, how the finger's going to kind of keep things tight by, again, touching the strings I'm not playing, not pushing them down, just touching them. All right, let's check this out. And by the way, I am just going to rockguitarpower.com on my phone and streaming the backing tracks there. So definitely one of the best resources of this site or any other guitar site. Backing tracks are just the best way to really, you know, hone in on your chops, practice what you're kind of working on, and so forth. So let's see if we can get this going. All right, here we go. All right, so there's a little gem in for you. Hopefully, you kind of noticed some of those things I was talking about. And one of the licks that I love that really brings this to light is this repetitive pattern that goes like this. I'm singing. Okay, now this is a repetitive pattern that starts on the D string and moves down to the high E string. But what happens is as I go down, you'll see my palm just kind of lightly, hover over the strings. It's touching them and keeping them quiet. So watch it again. Right now, if I don't keep my palm, watch the difference. Okay, again, it might not sound huge, but again, everything helps and everything adds up. So when you're doing all these techniques, it makes a big difference, okay? The other thing, too, when I'm doing bending, and that's obviously another huge thing that Stevie and all guitar players, really defines a guitar player, in my opinion, is their bending. It's a way to sound more vocal, and it's one of the elements of guitar that makes it so unique. It's something that you can't do as easily and is organically on other instruments like piano or, horns or anything like that. Obviously, you got like a pitch bend wheel, but that's not organic, in my opinion. You're kind of modifying the sound digitally. But with guitar, you can go to town and just just feel it. But what happens is when I do that, when I bend up, the tips of my fingers here are touching at least the next string, if not the one below it, and that is keeping that string quiet. Okay. And then if you notice, too, a lot of times my thumb comes up over the top of the neck. Now, when I do that, what's happening is it's just lightly touching the big E string so that it doesn't vibrate and make noise, all right? And that's a huge one because the bigger the string, the more noise it's going to make and the more sound it's going to produce, even if you're not touching it. But by getting my thumb up there, all right, that whole time, my thumb is resting on the big string, just enough to touch it so it's not ringing out, okay? Sometimes, someone like Hendrix or, Eric Johnson, some monster players with bigger hands, even Stevie a lot, he would bring his thumb up to actually play the note, all right? He can wrap his thumb around, press the note down, and you get tone out of it, all right? But something that I never really got accustomed to doing, so that's one way to kind of use your fingers differently. But the most of the time when you see my thumb come up, it's just to touch the string just enough so that it doesn't ring out. Okay, so again, just a nice little tip there. The other thing that you want to do is practice this in different keys so that you're using different areas of the neck, okay? And make sure that it feels the same, okay? That's one of the things about guitar being a very pattern-oriented instrument. And when you move the patterns, while, yes, the frets get wider apart as you get, more towards the headstock, most of the techniques and things that we talk about, are global. So it's not going to really it shouldn't affect where you are in the guitar neck. So let's do the same thing. We're going to do a 12-bar blues in A, though. So instead of being centered on the 12th fret, when we're in A, we're going to either start our minor, pentatonic, or blues scales at the 5th fret, or up on the 17th fret, okay? And this is great because it gives me two big, drastic, different places to play in the neck. But what you'll see is that the techniques are all the same, okay? And it should transfer the same. So we're going to use a 12-bar blues in the key of A, and let's do the same type of thing. We're just going to jam along. All right, cool. So there's some examples in the key of A. Again, I was spending a lot of time up here, but we started out at the 5th fret. And some things to point out there, when I was doing like the one note that just held in vibrato, okay, again, you could see this finger just laying flat, all right? In between that finger there, and pretty much this finger takes care of most stuff, because if you look at it, the way it's just kind of laying flat across all these strings, it's going to keep everything muted, okay? And I don't have to worry about anything that happens behind the note I'm fretting, okay? If I'm fretting the 19th fret in this case, if I do something behind that on the same string, it's not going to matter. It's only going to matter from here to the pickup, okay? So by doing this technique, I know that in my right hand, I could be just super aggressive, hit as much as I want. Okay, you can see I could literally strum every note. And the only one that rings out is the G string that I got my finger down on, okay? And that's a really good way to practice this is, you know, if I lay this finger flat and then fret the 19th fret on the G string with my middle finger. Now you can see that if I kind of push down on some of the notes, you could hear some extra noise, all right? These are the things that you want to practice and try to get rid of, okay? So as I have that note down, I'm playing with the pressure of my finger in my hand, okay? Because little adjustments will end up actually making a note ring out, and that's what you don't want in this case, unless it's the one note that we're meant to be playing. So experiment with that. It's a really good way to kind of practice, you know, and get that note nice and tight. So, all right, cool. All right, I'm going to do a little more jamming. I'm going to hang on for another like 10 minutes or so. But again, those are most of the things I wanted to talk about, you know, revolving around playing these notes nice and clean. If you guys have questions, please chime in. I'm happy to cover other topics too as we're hanging out here. But I'm going to play a little bit of acoustic stuff. And while it's a different type of guitar, the techniques and the idea are very similar. So usually with acoustic, you know, we're not. You should guys be able to hear that, I think. With acoustic, you know, we're usually not using distortion. So that's one element of, you know, this type of guitar that you don't have to worry about as much. What is more prevalent, though, are feedback and other noises, okay? That's a big issue with acoustic guitar, because if you're playing in front of a monitor when you're live, you know, any strings that are left to vibrate will start giving you feedback if you're too loud, all right? And that's another reason to work on this, both for electric and acoustic, okay, for a totally different reason, but same idea. You know, you're wanting to keep your notes nice and tight so that it's not making noise everywhere, okay? So let me go ahead and just do a little jam here. Actually, we're going to play a fingerstyle tune. This is called Windy and Warm by Doc Watson, I believe it was. Actually, I think Doc Watson made it famous. I'm not sure if he's the one who wrote it, but anyhow, this is Windy and Warm. All right, there you go. There's a little finger-style version of "Windy and Warm." That was Tommy Emmanuel. Kind of learned that from Tommy Emmanuel as far as the arrangement. But again, similar ideas. You know, you're going to want to keep all of these techniques of keeping your strings tight and the sound nice and tight. And the best way to do it too is just play super slow. Break down what you're doing. You know, really take the same notes, the same rhythms, and just play everything slower to examine it. And also recording yourself and playing it back is a huge, huge way to really work on this. That's when you really kind of start hearing all these things a lot more, you know, in your face, and they're a lot more apparent. So cool, guys. Hope you had fun, and I always love doing these. And you know, anytime you want another topic or you're looking to learn more, or want specific lessons on things, feel free to email me. I'm always looking for topics to do new videos. That's how I kind of chose today's topic. Is you know one of my students, Blake. Once again, thanks for writing in. You know, asked about how to control the noise and things like that. So write in Mike at rockguitarpower.com or Mike at superguitarlicks.com. They're both different guitar sites that are going to help you learn and get your chops up, you know, on guitar, online guitar lessons and so forth. But again, I'm having a blast doing these live lessons. It's a lot of fun for me to interact with you guys, play for you guys, and answer questions. So go check out rockguitarpower.com and superguitarlicks.com. Both have free, you know, lessons that you can get started with. They also have paid and premium stuff for you to kind of dig in and get a lot more advanced stuff going. So thanks again. Oops. Oh, Randy, you're welcome, buddy. Thanks. Glad you enjoyed it. So, all right, guys, take care. Mike Deary. We'll talk to you soon, and stay tuned on the email list. That's when I tell people what times I'm going to be doing these, what days and times. So keep an eye out in the inbox, and I'll let you know the next time we do another live stream. All right, thanks, guys. Have a great week.